can heal all wounds and make everything feel whole.
He was sweet, he, took care of her.
They developed this relationship pretty quickly.
She thought that she found the man who was going to be able to allow her to be who she is.
But it can also bind too tightly, leading to a whirlwind of chaos.
He would exhibit some maybe controlling or possessive patterns with Destiny.
She didn't want to upset him in any way.
She sees her friend laying down outside of her car, bloody.
And choices that sacrifice everything for loyalty, no matter the cost.
I'm crying. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do.
Friday, January 1st, 2016, Kansas City, Missouri.
You're about a mile or two from the state line. There's a Kansas City, Kansas, and a Kansas City, Missouri, obviously divided by the state line.
I would describe it as a pretty family-oriented place. You can kind of get that small town feel in a big city.
At around 2:45 a.m. on a frigid New Year's morning, 911 dispatch gets a call about a shooting in the Hickman Mills neighborhood. The operator assures the caller that help is on the way.
The uniform officers show up first and determine what they have. There was a deceased male in the parking lot near a vehicle, and a female had been shot and was in bad shape.
Right away, the responding officers checked for any identification to establish who the victims are. The woman was identified as 19-year-old Kiera Ramsey. She had been shot twice and was on the verge of bleeding out.
The victim, he was identified as Cedric Jones. He had gunshot wounds, and he was laying on the ground.
Detectives discovered from his ID that Cedric is 24 years old, and detectives are eager to uncover what happened to Kiera and Cedric.
19-year-old Kiera Ramsey grew up in the area. She had finished high school and was working at a call center in Kansas City.
She loved to go out and shop, get her nails done, get her hair done. Like many young people, have fun, enjoy life, make the most of it.
Kiera was in a relationship with a man a few years older, Cedric Jones.
Cedric Jones was charming, charismatic, and had a natural way of drawing people in. And when he met Kiera, he fell fast and hard.
But it wasn't long before Kiera and Cedric's relationship took a turn.
Cedric was known to be controlling and at times abusive.
There was an incident where Cedric allegedly got physical with Kiera and the police were called to their home.
She reached a point where she had enough and broke things off with Cedric.
As New Year's Eve approached, Kiera decided to go out with some friends and she had no plans on inviting her ex.
But now, Kiera is being rushed to the hospital after a late-night shooting that took the life of her ex-boyfriend, Cedric.
All that we had at that time was that there was a deceased male in the parking lot near a vehicle, and that a female had been shot and was in bad shape and had been transported to a nearby hospital.
Investigators have their fingers crossed that Kiera will rally, for her family's sake and for the sake of the investigation into who did this and why.
Normally, there's a uniform officer that goes to the emergency room to update status, and we hadn't had any updates. No news is good news, right? So she was still alive at that point.
CSI techs logged 12 spent cartridge casings littering the frozen pavement. Their type and caliber is eye-opening.
Full metal jacket round, like a .223 round.
Examining Cedric Jones's body reveals more.
He did have a firearm in his clothing. It was a semi-automatic, I think, some type of, maybe a Glock handgun. The gun was fully loaded. There were no shell casings that matched the handgun that Cedric had. And so we knew that someone had been there and, shot him and left.
Whatever the reason, this attack was over almost as quickly as it began.
It tells me that he didn't have a chance to defend himself. That would be my take.
Detectives run the license plate of the vehicle next to Cedric's body.
The plate number comes back registered to the victim, Cedric Jones.
Detectives notice tire tracks in the space next to Cedric's SUV.
It's clear from the fresh condition of the tire tracks that there was a second car involved. But whose car? The killer's?
The unfortunate thing is that, we didn't have a lot of witnesses there.
In search of answers, detectives interview the 911 caller.
When they speak to the caller, they learn that the O'Hara Event Center had been booked for a party that evening.
It was late after the party. Most people were gone. And the one witness we had on the scene was kind of like a manager of the event space and was cleaning up.
The manager tells police that the party had ended around 1:30 a.m. and that the hall was empty by 2.
The parking lot where it occurred was, I would say, maybe 50 yards away. So he couldn't see specific plate numbers, or he just had some general descriptions of the vehicles that he saw. He heard gunshots and saw what he thought was a car maybe driving from the area. That was it.
Police canvass the surrounding area, hoping technology can offer additional clues.
We always want to be aware of video. Where's the video? Are there cameras? We're looking for cameras. Another building nearby turned out to be a church where there was some actual video footage that we were able to get.
The police also discovered a security camera that is focused on the interior of the O'Hara Center.
There's surveillance footage of the actual New Year's Eve party inside the venue.
When detectives view the footage, the puzzle begins to come into view. Could this be the breakthrough they've been searching for?
You see on the video, she's trying to calm him down. Hey, everything will be fine. Let's not do this here.
Homicide detectives in Kansas City, Missouri have spent the first hours of New Year's Day investigating a shooting that killed Cedric Jones and left Kiera Ramsey in critical condition. Their search for answers is now focused on CCTV footage of the party and its aftermath.
Police scrubbed through footage to about 1 a.m. right before the venue closed for the night. They recognized the victims instantly.
We have video footage of Cedric Jones, Kiera Ramsey inside the event hall.
Detectives also see an unidentified second young woman partying alongside Kiera and Cedric.
The quality of the camera footage wasn't high quality enough for the police to identify the second woman in the video.
And at some point, Cedric does show up and is hanging out with them, and he even went into the girls' bathroom with them. And then they leave the venue, and that's all on video.
When police review footage from the exterior of the O'Hara Center, the video is initially a dead end.
Once they left the property of the event hall, the camera angles toward the location of the homicide.
But when detectives reach the 2:45 a.m. mark on the footage, the time that the 911 caller heard gunfire, investigators get a glimpse of the immediate aftermath of the shooting.
In both cases, the surveillance footage and the witness's description, it was a 4-door sedan fleeing the scene.
Police issue a description of the car to news outlets and social media. And just a few hours later, around 10:20 a.m., they receive a call that sends detectives into action.
Someone had called in about a car that was sitting in a lot in a neighborhood on the southeast side of town that had bullet holes in it.
You can see that the shooting had taken place. There was blood also found on this abandoned vehicle.
Detectives quickly run the vehicle's plates, revealing the owner to be a woman named Daisha Wright.
They traced Daisha Wright's address and ran straight to her home.
When detectives arrive at Daisha Wright's home, she informs them that she'd spent New Year's Eve at home, but she'd loaned the car to her youngest daughter, 19-year-old Destiny Wright. Destiny was born into a family that had originally migrated from Philadelphia to the Midwest.
She always smiled as a baby. She came out ready for the camera.
When I was younger, I was just a girly girl.
She can sing, she can crochet, she can sew, she can do anything with her hands. She's very creative.
Her close-knit family worked together to see that Destiny was cared for and loved. But nothing could protect her from the pain of divorce.
He moved out, and it became a competition between Dad and I rather than Mom and Dad raising a child.
Vulnerable and deeply wounded by the split, young Destiny began acting out.
She was hurt, angry, confused. You know, her family was no longer as she knew it. She was fighting on the bus. The teacher would call. She's talking in class. She began to run away. I mean, quite a bit.
By high school, it was clear that Destiny was growing up fast.
You couldn't miss her. She was the only person freshman year who wore stilettos to school.
Destiny showed up for school beautifully, but maybe on the inside there's things that she's dealing with that she may not be talking about.
She turned heads. Like, Destiny was the it girl, basically. But she was still humble. She was still sweet, friendly.
Her head-turning looks earned her plenty of attention.
Sometime in the fall of 2015, she met a young man by the name of Ramon Boyd.
I was 18. I met him at his house. A friend of mine, she was with her dude, and he was entertaining me.
They seemed to click, and the relationship moved so fast that she stayed the first night with him that she met him.
I spent the night at his house, and we exchanged numbers, and we were inseparable.
They developed this relationship pretty quickly.
I moved in with Ramon probably about, I would say, a week and a half after we met. It was pretty fast.
The fact that Ramon was 10 years her senior and had kids from a previous relationship only drew Destiny closer.
She presented to be a very mature young woman. You could see how she may be attracted to someone who's older.
And from the very start, Destiny understood that Ramon's life outside their relationship was his alone.
He was still selling drugs. We didn't get into each other's business like that.
She would say nice things about him, like nothing bad about him. Like, he was a good person. He was sweet. He took care of her. He was just a nice guy.
He was always trying to find ways to make me laugh, but he was very protective.
When she met Raymond, she thought that she found the man who was going to be able to handle all of who she is.
Daisha Wright tells detectives she got a call from her daughter about her car just moments before they arrived.
My oldest daughter calls me, and she says, "Mommy, your car is out here in front of my house." And she went out, she said, "Mommy, there's bullet holes going all through your car."
Detectives are now aware about who may have been driving the car and asked Daisha for the keys to the vehicle.
So I gave them the key so that they could take it and dust it for evidence or whatever it is that they needed to do.
She tells detectives Destiny was staying with her sister, who lived next door to where the car was found.
About 3 hours later, Destiny's sister called law enforcement to let them know that Destiny has returned to the house.
Upon arrival, investigators assure Destiny that she's not under arrest. They simply want her to accompany them to the local precinct to tell them what she knows about the deadly incident the night before.
They asked Destiny if she would give a statement. So then from there, they transport Destiny in the back of a patrol car, isolated from any family member or anything like that, to the police station.
Without any more leads, detectives hope that Destiny holds the key to unlocking the case.
At first, she's reluctant to speak to the police, but as she begins to open up, it's clear to everyone that there's more to the story than anyone expected.
On the first day of 2016, Kansas City homicide have found both a car they believe left the scene of a fatal New Year's Eve shooting and its alleged driver, 19-year-old Destiny Wright.
Destiny's car has been shot up, and that's pretty much all they know. And they know that Kiera has been shot and Cedric's been shot.
They have surveillance footage of Destiny's car fleeing the scene and learned from her mother that Destiny had the car that night.
After learning Destiny's whereabouts, detectives transport her to the station to learn what she knows about the shooting.
Destiny agrees to go to the station and give law enforcement a statement. The officer then asks Destiny, "Can you bring your cell phone with you?" Destiny suggests that she did not need her cell phone. However, law enforcement encouraged her to bring her cell phone.
She was not a suspect. If you're an innocent person and you want to help solve a case, you want to bring your phone and help out. I would say 99% of the time, when you have a phone, if they're in the proximity of a homicide case, those phones are going to have extremely valuable information.
At the station, Destiny is placed in an interrogation room, now face to face with detectives.
There were some things that didn't make sense, what happened.
Destiny tells investigators she and Kiera were friends from work.
They've known each other for a while.
Destiny and Kiera decide that they are going to go out and have a girls' night and enjoy themselves.
Destiny tells detectives that they made plans to go to a New Year's Eve party at the O'Hara Center.
We knew that's where everybody was gonna be, so we had to be there.
Destiny begins to give detectives more detail about the events of the night.
Kiera and Destiny are doing your normal stuff on New Year's Eve, dancing, having a good time, up at the DJ booth, that sort of thing.
We're just dancing, vibing, taking pictures and stuff like that.
And then all of a sudden, unbeknown to both of them, Cedric Jones shows up.
Cedric shows up there, likely feeling like he has lost control of this relationship that he has with Kiera.
They had actually broken up, but Cedric had not accepted the fact that the relationship had ended.
When the party was over, everybody is walking towards the doors, and Cedric rushes in, like he rushes us. He was not happy. He grabs Kiera.
The event space video tells the same story.
You see him reach for Kiera, grab her at times. You see an exchange with Destiny, verbal exchange with Destiny and with Cedric.
Me and Kiera, we walk in the bathroom. He follows us in the bathroom.
So far, Destiny's statement seems to match what the detectives have already seen on the surveillance footage.
He held us in the bathroom. He would not let us get out. Worker from the banquet hall actually came to the door and said, "Y'all have to go."
As they head outside, there's an exchange that quickly escalated, and Destiny tells detectives that she saw a gun.
Kansas City, Missouri homicide detectives have been questioning Destiny Wright, their only potential witness to Cedric Jones' murder and Kiera Ramsey's near-fatal shooting in the first hours of 2016.
If you can picture Destiny and Kiera at the New Year's Eve party, she had just recently broken up with her boyfriend Cedric, packed a bag, planning to stay with Destiny after they had this good time at the New Year's Eve party.
Destiny told detectives the two women hadn't counted on Cedric crashing the party.
Cedric arrives to the party attempting to talk to Kiera. In an effort to get her back, he became aggressive and even followed the women into the ladies' room until they were all asked to leave.
Destiny's story seemed to match the surveillance footage obtained from inside the party and outside the venue.
As they're leaving the center, you can see that Destiny is kind of walking with Cedric. She's trying to calm him down. Hey, everything will be fine. Let's not do this here. We just want to, have our good time. It's late. Let's all go home.
There's no surveillance footage of the parking lot, so police asked Destiny what really happened during this time.
When I get to my car, Cedric is parked right next to me. And I get in my driver's side, Kiera gets in my passenger side, and he would not let me close my door because he thought I was going to drive off with her in the car.
They're trying to get in the car, and there's just lots of commotion where the girls are trying to get away.
She kept telling him, "I don't want to go with you." I stuck my key in my ignition. Cedric reaches over me and snatches my key out the ignition. So I got out the car, and I snatched it back out his hand.
Then they all get in the car. So you have Destiny in the driver's seat, you have Kiera in the front passenger seat, and then you have Cedric sitting behind both of them in the rear seat.
And there is a verbal heated exchange in the vehicle between the parties.
He's basically repeating himself over and over. He's pulling things out his pocket, he's pulling out money, he pulled out his phone, then he pulled out a gun. And that's when I got concerned.
Destiny tells police that for the first time that night, she felt genuinely afraid.
He never directly pointed it, but I knew that he was drunk and he was being very careless with it.
Eventually, Kiara's just like, all right, whatever, you know, he's not gonna let us leave. I'm just gonna go with him. At that point, she opens her door to get out of the car. Cedric is getting out as well.
She was just like, okay, whatever, fine, I'll go with you.
And then at that point, somebody comes, multiple rounds, 12, 13 rounds are fired. They hit Kiara. Cedric was shot, and there were multiple bullet holes through the front windshield of the car.
It was so close, like my eardrum popped. Once the gun went off, like my hair went out. So I looked over and I saw Kiara and Cedric drop to the ground. And I left the scene.
She sees her friend laying down outside of her car, bloody, and then she just gets out of there.
I don't believe I was thinking. I was just shocked. And I just knew I had to get out of there.
When detectives asked Destiny who did the shooting, she explains that she was so shocked that she momentarily blacked out.
At that point, I didn't know what to do.
So in my mind, Destiny's in a situation of where there's just been 12 rounds fired. She almost could have died.
Detectives press Destiny about what she does remember after she fled the scene.
I remember swerving when I was driving because, you know, I'm trying to see through this shattered window shield. I'm crying.
After the shooting, Destiny left, and then she dropped her car off near where her sister lived. Her car had bloodstains on it, bullet holes on it.
I just left the car there. There were multiple bullet holes through the windshield.
She tells detectives that after she got to her sister's home, she called her boyfriend, Ramon Boyd.
So I just told him to come get me. I was at my sister's house, and Ramon came to get me, and he took me home.
The detectives investigating the shooting are skeptical of Destiny's story, particularly her blackout.
Sometimes when people are in interviews, they'll do things to kind of forget, come up with you know, I was asleep or I blacked out. Those are some excuses people, you know, can say to not have to tell the story.
She is saying that she don't know who was involved. She have no idea in terms of who the shooter may be.
Then got a search warrant for it, and then they got into the contents of the phone.
While forensic techs begin analyzing Destiny's phone, detectives are finally able to sit down with the sole remaining witness.
So Kiara came out of a coma on February the 2nd.
She came on her own and gave an interview about what happened that night.
But after the trauma of being shot, emergency surgery, and an only partial recovery, Kiara's initial recollection doesn't add more pieces to the puzzle.
She was a very calm person and was able to talk about what happened that night. She was just having a conversation with him or listening to Cedric, and then boom, that was it.
But one part of her story contradicts Destiny's in a major way.
Kiara's statement to law enforcement is most interesting because she stated that at no point was she afraid.
Between left with more questions than answers.
Destiny says Cedric pulled out a gun, but Kiara says she didn't feel threatened at any point. And you'd imagine if he pulled out a gun, she would have.
February 2016. In the aftermath of a deadly New Year's Eve shooting, Homicide detectives in Kansas City, Missouri are laser focused on 19-year-old Destiny Wright and Destiny's cell phone.
So we kind of had an idea that the phone might have been a hot potato.
Detectives obtained a warrant for her phone and then sent it off for analysis in the hopes that we'll be able to fill in the gaps within her story.
Law enforcement obtained the cell phone records, and they noticed that during the time of the incident that Destiny is in the vehicle and she's texting someone repeatedly.
Detectives found it interesting that during her interview, she had not said a thing about texting anyone.
The volley of texts between Destiny and a contact ID'd on her phone as TK lines up with the time Destiny told detectives she was in her car with Kiera Ramsey and Cedric Jones.
She's texting with the number, so we were able to identify TK as Ramon Boyd through that information.
Now, detectives move to examine Ramon Boyd's call and text history. The text thread gives detectives a whole new story of the events leading up to the shooting.
Those text messages literally brought the shooter to the scene. And there are messages that are going back and forth between the two, such as, keep him there. Destiny sends a text, hurry up. Ramon says, I'm getting close. And then Destiny goes on with the text saying, come right now.
We were able to see the texts that show Destiny Wright directing Ramon Boyd in to shoot Cedric and ultimately Kiera.
The texts are saying one thing, but Destiny is sticking to her story. Detectives now believe that Ramon and Destiny conspired in the deadly shooting. So, investigators meticulously assemble evidence to back up their claim.
The cell phone tower was able to place Ramon at the place of the shooting.
On March 3rd, 2016, with enough evidence in hand, police move in to arrest Destiny and Ramon.
They were at Ramon's parents' house.
I heard Destiny Wright, come out with your hands up. And that's what I did.
They were transported to Kansas City, Missouri Police Headquarters and placed in separate interrogation rooms. And both of them declined to speak with detectives about the case.
Prosecutors charge Ramon Boyd with felony murder, first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and leaving the scene of a shooting. Destiny was charged with second-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, assault in the first degree, and tampering with evidence.
You might say that the state threw the book at her, but they may have had a reason to scare her into testifying against Ramon Boyd.
I discussed with Destiny, here are our options, but she didn't want to testify against Ramon in this case.
Destiny is taking legal advice from another source.
I didn't even know at the time till later in the case. Destiny was talking with Ramon the whole time that she was in custody through a 3-way call where Ramon would call his mother and then his mother would connect them.
He told me to not take a plea deal. We were gonna fight this.
That was kind of a way of where Ramon could kind of put thoughts into Destiny's head, control her, if you will.
The plan was all along was to protect each other. I felt like Ramon would protect me to the very end.
Prosecutors learned that Destiny's relationship with Ramon was anything but balanced. His influence over her ran deep.
From time to time, Ramon would exhibit some maybe controlling or possessive patterns with Destiny.
He didn't like me wearing certain things, doing certain things, and I kind of just went along with it, because I was in love with him.
Prosecutors discover that over time, their relationship escalated, eventually becoming physically violent.
There was one incident where he was physical. It was a heated argument, and he told me to leave, and I was like, I'm not going nowhere. So he ended up, pushing me down some stairs, a small flight of stairs.
I'm not too sure exactly what happened, but she called me and she was upset. And I was like, did he hit you? And she didn't say anything.
It was a little toxic, I would say.
Destiny remained loyal to her man, no matter what.
Investigators learned that Destiny stayed with Ramon, even after the abuse, and he continued to exert some level of control over her, even the night of the New Year's Eve party.
Ramon was texting me, basically telling me not to dance on any guys or don't flirt with any guys.
Now, with Destiny potentially facing decades in prison, Ramon still maintained influence from his jail cell.
Ramon told me that there was no way they could find me guilty of this, which is why I should take it to trial.
And prosecutors discover that days after the shooting, he'd seen to it that they had insurance.
On January 4th, 2016, Destiny Wright and Ramon Boyd were married.
We went to go get the paperwork from the courthouse, and his aunt married us.
I was totally in the dark. And so it was very painful. I mean, every mother wants to dress up her daughter in that room and put that veil on her and go through all that. I didn't have that.
Some people believe that this was due to Ramon Boyd and Destiny Wright wanting to have spousal privilege so that anything that they had said to each other wouldn't matter because they wouldn't testify about any of it.
Discrepancies about how the police went about getting Destiny's cell phone.
But when trial begins, both Destiny's voluntary interview and her texts with Ramon remain crucial aspects of the prosecution's case.
It was intense. The courtroom was full of, friends and family on their side, and I had my mom, my dad, and my pastor there to support me.
The prosecution takes full advantage of Ramon and Destiny's strategizing while they were awaiting trial.
They used those calls to try to portray her in a different light.
I felt like they were trying to paint me out to be a monster. I felt like they were putting this image on me like, oh, we set Cedric up to get killed.
The defense presented a different story as Destiny took the stand and laid out her full story of the night of the shooting.
Presented with all the cell phone evidence, Destiny can't claim that she blacked out, so she describes what happened outside on the night of the incident.
I called Ramon when it started to get heated because Cedric was waving a gun around, and I was scared.
She's concerned. She calls her man and puts it on speakerphone so that he can hear what's happening in the car.
I had the phone in between my thighs, and I let him listen to what was going on. And then we started texting back and forth. I just wanted him out of my car.
Destiny testifies that she looks up from her phone to see Ramon Boyd pointing a gun directly at her car.
I didn't see him walk up. He was just in front of my car.
And then she says, a spray of bullets tears through her windshield.
Destiny herself could have been killed.
I think Ramon was aiming for Cedric. Kiera got shot. It was an accident.
I believe that Kiera got caught up in the crossfire. It's very sad. It's all sad.
Despite her testimony and claims of innocence, on December 15th, 2017, the jury finds Destiny Wright guilty of all charges.
Once they found her guilty, we went into a sentencing hearing. And then Daisha Wright, Destiny's mom, got on the stand, and she was very emotional. And she apologized to the other family.
I spoke to Cedric Jones' mother, who had lost her son, as well as Cedric's girlfriend, who had children by him. So 3 mothers have lost, and I was so sorry that happened. So I did. When I got off the stand, I embraced her and she embraced me back.
The court, however, remains unmoved. Destiny receives the maximum sentence allowed.
When the judge said 32 years consecutive, like my heart dropped to the bottom of my stomach. And I just remember crying and just thinking, like, how did I get here? Like, how did it get to this moment?
At his own trial, Ramon Boyd is also found guilty of all charges. But his combined 27-year sentence is actually the lesser of the two. While Destiny Wright remains in prison, she has, in the years since her conviction, earned another kind of freedom.
Destiny did let me know that she got divorced from Ramon.
He realized that he didn't have that influence over me anymore. He realized he didn't have that control. And I feel like he didn't like that.
She regrets talking to him. She regrets getting married to him. She regrets all of it.
I feel like before I was very codependent on him. He made most of my decisions. He did almost everything for me, you know, and with me being by myself, I'm kind of, you know, forced to grow up.
You gotta have boundaries. If you're not okay with something, you gotta let people know. And if they can't respect your boundaries, that's a sign.
Now Destiny puts her trust in herself and the people that have stood by her.
Actually, I have a letter that Destiny wrote to me, and if you will allow me to read it, I would love to do that. Mother, do you know the one thing I thank God for every day? You. I thank God for my mother, for him to bless me with someone as awesome and as amazing. God made no mistake in making us a pair. I'm so glad that he chose me to be your daughter. You have been all that I need to be and more. Thank you for being you. With all the love of my heart.
Nothing can undo what happened that night. Cedric Jones lost his life and others were forever changed. A senseless tragedy that left multiple families grieving and searching for answers.
I know that there are no words, you know, that can fix the situation, you know, but I never wanted that to happen. Kiera, she was my friend and I cared about her. And my feelings for my ex-husband just, you know, overrode that in that moment. But I am truly deeply sorry.
Ride or die, and till death do us part. They are two sides of the same coin. The loyalty that blooms with love can be unwavering, no matter the storm. But blind devotion can lead down a path of reckless sacrifice, where we risk losing everything, starting with ourselves.
Welcome to Always True Crime, a podcast network bringing you gripping real-life stories that you won't be able to stop thinking about. Discover your next true crime obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.
Did the killer of Caroline Jones leave a clue to their identity by her body? Find out on Murder Mile. The date was Wednesday the 10th of April 1940. 7 months after the start of World War II, and 5 months before the dreaded Blitz bombings, which decimated the city, causing 2 mass evacuations. As the Nazi hordes crept ever closer to our borders, with trepidation, life in the city moved on for now. The time was 10:15 a.m. when Alfred Scott, a surveyor for Bates & Co., an estate agents in Kilburn, rang the bell to the communal door at 21 Bronsbury Villas, but no one was in, as everyone was at work. On behalf of the landlord, 3 flats had been rented out. James and Saskia Goldborough lived in the basement. His father Henry, mother Jane, and sister Jane Jr. on the ground floor, and with a maisonette on the first and second. The attic had been sublet to Dutch national John van Giersdaal, but he had moved out a month prior. And with 60-year-old German widow Caroline Jones, believed to have left with £20 rent owing, about £1,500 today, as was her habit, Alfred was here to check that she had gone. Unlocking the communal door, he rose up the stairs, and on the first floor, he unlocked the maisonette door. There were 4 keys, one which John van Giersdaal had returned to the estate agents when he left, the spare key which Alfred was using now, and 2 keys still held by Caroline and her son Frederick. Upon entry, nothing roused his suspicion, as all except for the fan light above the door, every window was fastened, but there was clear evidence she hadn't been there for a while, but she hadn't left. The flat had 4 rooms, a lavatory which was empty, a kitchenette which had a stale slice of bread on the side and a stack of dirty dishes as the mains water had been off for a month, and 2 bedrooms. The front bedroom was empty. The bedsheets were messy, but they hadn't been slept in for months. In the wardrobe was a man's fedora hat, an ash walking stick and a broken tennis racket, later confirmed to belong to Frederick, Caroline's son, whose room this was. And on the dressing table, a wireless radio, a penknife, and a set of keys which fitted the maisonette's Yale lock, as previously owned by Frederick. At that point, Alfred the surveyor for Bates & Co. had just one thought on his mind: how to evict them, as with no hint of foul play. Yes, the flat was messy, but what did he expect from a tenant like Caroline? It was then, with a shiver down his spine, that he stopped just shy of her bedroom door. It was open. Having inspected the premises before, he knew it was never open. As being a cautious and paranoid woman, given her past, a key had been inserted into the padlock from the outside. But before it was turned, the door had been forced, the wood had splintered, and the padlock scattered. As an ex-copper and a coroner's officer, Alfred knew to touch nothing, so he let his eyes scan the room before he ventured any further. With the room made dark as the windows were covered with blackout paper, he could see that the drawers of the dressing table were open and empty, but around it, women's clothes were scattered: a blue and white jumper, a blue nightdress, and 3 cotton handkerchiefs. When the room was searched, not a pound note nor a penny was found. But given how broke Caroline said she was, it's uncertain how much she actually had. As for her jewellery, 2 18-carat gold wedding bands, one with a diamond and one with a ruby, a gold watch, a 4-pearl brooch and a gold slave bangle. All of them were missing, but as she was living off benefits and sleeping in hostels, it's uncertain if she'd already sold them. Further in, it was clear that a certain someone who'd broken in was looking for something specific. Perched on an armchair, her brown attaché case containing her bills, letters and court summonses had been searched, but not finding what they sought, they grabbed a black Gladstone bag. With it locked, they frantically cut away the clasps using a small penknife, and desperate to find that one thing, they scattered its contents across the floor, sweeping aside anything which wasn't that one thing. Inside was toiletries, calling cards, her diary, containing mostly lists of lodging houses, estate agents, and rooms to let, and scraps of paper on which she'd scrawled the names and addresses of those she had met. But they'd left behind items of significant value. Her passport, her National War Savings Certificate, her ration books, and 3 savings books for the Post Office, Abbey Road Building Society, and Lloyd's Bank. Whatever they were looking for, it's unlikely they found it, as Caroline had paid the ultimate price. The first thing that hit Alfred was the smell. A sulphurous stench of a body in active decay. Flies buzzed as the skin slipped, and maggots squirmed along the soft dark flesh. As with the body having bloated and then ruptured, it leaked a vile dribble of foul fluids out of every orifice, off the bed and onto the floor. And although a putrefied corpse was too horrific to look at, her death was obviously cruel and unnatural. She was lying on her back, diagonally across the bed, her legs hanging limply over the side. Except for a flower pot hat which lay by the door, her black leather shoes which had fallen off in the attack, and her gas mask case and string shopping bag which was still attached to her wrist, having just come in. She was fully dressed in the clothes she was wearing 21 days before. Yet her only injury was a bloody nose. With no defensive wounds and no signs of a struggle. To restrain her, her assailant had ripped up her tablecloth into strips. Her wrists and ankles had been bound to the iron frame of the bed. Her mouth had been gagged with a red woolen scarf. And with her unconscious having been punched in the face, her overcoat and her skirt had been raised up to the height of her hips, leaving her underwear exposed. But why? Examined at Kilburn Mortuary, the Home Office pathologist Sir Bernard Spilsbury confirmed she had no other injuries, that this was willful murder, that her cause of death was suffocation caused by the pillow found by her head. And although it looked as if she'd been raped or molested, she hadn't. So who had murdered Caroline Jones, and why? Caroline Getta Jones was born Caroline Liedermann on the 4th of March 1880 in Keinwallstadt, a small town in Bavaria, Germany. Little is known of her early life, except she first married aged 20 in 1900 to an unnamed German Jew. In 1908 they had a son called Frederick. Separating in 1909, she bigamously married again, but then was widowed in 1918. And then marrying Corporal John Howell Jones of the Royal Army Ordnance Corps in 1920. By 1930, the same year she became a British citizen, she was widowed. Her life could have been worse. As being a German Jew, by 1933, when the Nazis came to power, she was living freely in London, far from the horrors of the Holocaust. But her life wouldn't be without hardship. Hence she was infamously known to be gruff, foul-mouthed, unpleasant, and a habitual liar. Across her final decade, she amassed 5 criminal convictions which summed up her life's sad decline. In 1935 at Clerkenwell, with her flat having been raided by the police, she was fined £20 for running a brothel in Bloomsbury and was described as quarrelsome and disgusting. By 1937, having been evicted by her landlady for living in a squalid, filthy lodging in Stoke Newington, she was convicted twice in Soho and Marylebone for stealing a brooch, a tin of fruit, and a box of face powder. By 1938, living in King's Cross, she'd fled her lodging, leaving £6 in back rent, which she often did. 3 months later, she was sentenced to 6 months in prison for assault, a familiar trait for Caroline Jones. With no friends and very little family, as she persistently rubbed others up the wrong way, she lived by her wits on the breadline of poverty, and with very little to call her own, wherever she went, she hid her most precious items in specially sewn pockets she had stitched into her knickers and stockings. With her son Frederick married, but a Jew who was stuck in Nazi Germany, soaking her crumpled and worn clothes with a river of tears. She told anyone who would listen that she had £2,600, roughly £168,000 today, to smuggle him out of the country. And yet, as a refugee, he arrived in September, courtesy of a charity. On the 10th of October 1938, at Bates & Co., the estate agents on Kilburn High Road, she rented a 2-roomed maisonette at 21 Bronsbury Villas for herself and her son. It was cheap, squalid. She always reneged on the rent, leaving a litany of excuses and lies, and she was not liked by the tenants. In the basement, James and Saskia Goldbrew said she was rude, abusive. She stole their milk and their letters and deliberately banged the doors at night, keeping their children awake. Henry and Jane on the ground floor told the police that Caroline regularly fought with her son. He was seen with a black eye. She punched her sister and broke her brother-in-law's nose as the two stayed with her before both refugees fled to Palestine. And John Van Giersdal, her lodger, left as he suspected that she was using her flat as a brothel. On the 14th of October 1939, at Marlborough Street Police Court, Caroline was sentenced to 6 months hard labour for stealing a hat from Selfridge's department store on Oxford Street. Serving a time at H&P Holloway before being transferred to H&P Aylesbury, she was disliked by the prisoners and officers alike. She was described as filthy, surly and obnoxious. She was repeatedly beaten up by fellow inmates, and she continually bragged about how she had a beautiful home in Kilburn and was wealthy with £2,600. And that's what made her murder impossible to solve. As she lied, and she wasn't liked. But who had murdered her? A friend, a relative, a potential rapist, a spectre from her past, or a complete stranger? The strange last days of Caroline Jones began on Friday the 15th of March 1940, 15 days before her death. 11 days before, she spent her 60th birthday in prison, and by the time she was released, there was no one there to greet her, as her son had left, having been enlisted into the Auxiliary Military Pioneer Corps. That day, Caroline caught a train from Aylesbury to Baker Street. And unwilling or unable to return to her flat at Bronsbury Villas, she met an adjutant of the Salvation Army, and she asked to be housed in a homeless hostel. She went to the flat. She packed her bags, but for whatever reason, she never arrived. She did the same over the next 2 weeks. She pleaded for a free bed at the Salvation Army hostel, but failed to show up. She instead paid 22 shillings, roughly £40, to kip for a week at the YMCA. She claimed to be destitute and seeking a handout from the Royal British Legion, appearing distressed, hysterical, and some said mentally unbalanced. But was she afraid of the streets, her flat, or somebody she knew? With her lodger and her son having moved out, she couldn't afford the flat, not that it ever stopped her. From her ripped open Gladstone bag, scattered across the floor beside her body, police found business cards and scraps of paper bearing the names and addresses of the places she'd applied to jobs for. And pleading that she was a refugee, which she wasn't, a widow, which she was thrice over, and homeless, which technically she wasn't. Many employers pitied her and gave her a hot meal. In her possession, she had both sets of keys to the flat, having refused to give them back. And with a bucket of chutzpah, even though she owed £20 back rent, on the 21st of March, 9 days before her death, she went to Bates & Co., the estate agents on the Kilburn High Road, and she insisted they reconnect her water. But she wasn't exactly broke. 3 days prior, at Abbey Road Building Society, she claimed that while she was in prison, someone had withdrawn £10, 7 shillings and 3p from her account, which could never be proven. That same day, she made some small withdrawals, totalling about £13. And at the Unemployment Assistance Board in Park Royal, Her benefits were denied as she had too much money. She had 1 shilling at the co-op, £2 at Lloyd's, £19 at the post office, £400 in national savings certificates, and with shares from her 3 dead husbands, she was sitting on a fortune of £2,833, around £202,000 today, more than she'd lied about. She never wore her wealth and she never spent it, but some kind of plan was clearly brewing. Of the many names and diary entries found at the crime scene, one was to rent a room at 54 Shireland Road in Paddington. After much back and forth, on the 22nd of March, Caroline agreed to move in. She paid 15 shillings deposit. Then she said it was only to be used for storage, and instead she slept at a hostel. Of the houses she looked at on Cleveland Gardens, Connaught Street, Sussex Gardens, Star Street and Prince's Terrace, all had previously been brothels. All required a £2,000 deposit to rent, and she even went as far as to find a disreputable man to go into business with her, but that opportunity collapsed. It's uncertain if this 60-year-old widow, described as filthy, uncouth and foul, was still working as a sex worker, as her lodger had claimed. But although she'd remained single ever since she'd been widowed, she often received 2 constant visitors to 21 Bronsbury Villas. One aged 40 to 45, 5'10", slim and wearing a taxi driver's cap, and another 30s, 5'6", stout with greasy hair. But none were ever identified. And as was typical of Caroline Jones, she also randomly assaulted strangers with no rhyme nor reason. On Saturday the 23rd of March 1940, just 1 week before her death, outside of 19 Bronsbury Villas next door, she asked a furniture removals man for his card and she requested the quote, but she never called him. And across the next 5 days, nothing is known about where she went or what she did, until this. On Friday the 29th of March, the day before her death, she applied to be a maid at a house in Kensington. Unable to stand for long or move quickly owing to a recent knee operation, she didn't get the job, but claiming to be destitute, she made a big impression on the housekeeper who noticed her jewellery. 2 18-carat gold bands with a diamond and a ruby, a gold watch, a pearl brooch and a gold bangle. Hearing Caroline's plight, the housekeeper suggested that maybe she should sell them, but Caroline said she couldn't as they were of great sentimental value. Descriptions of every piece were circulated to every pawnbroker and jeweller in the area, but not a single item was ever found. Which brings us to Saturday the 30th of March 1940, her last day alive. There were only 2 sightings of her. At 1:30 p.m, when she left 21 Bronsbury Villas, carrying her black Gladstone bag and wearing the clothes she would die in. And at 5 p.m, when the housekeeper from the day before spotted her looking in the window of an antiques dealer's in Kensington. Where she went after that, who she met, what she did, and who she returned back to the flat with, remains unknown. Alerted by Alfred Scott, the surveyor for Bates & Co. On Wednesday the 10th of April 1940, officers arrived at 10:35 a.m. and Divisional Police Surgeon Dr. John Tweddle confirmed that she'd been dead for 21 days. On the bed, her body lay with no defensive wounds or struggle, just a single punch to the face and she had been suffocated with a pillow. She'd been restrained by her ankles and wrists using ripped strips of tablecloth so her legs and arms were splayed, and gagged with a scarf as she was silent and immobile, as her killer had pulled up her skirt to her hips, her knickers exposed, but there was no sexual assault. Clearly the killer had a deep hatred for her, but what was his motive? A rape, a robbery, or a murder? With no witnesses to anyone entering or exiting the premises at the time of the death, Detectives theorized she had either invited back someone she knew, or if she was still a sex worker, a customer. But given the fact that she had very little family and almost no friends, being abrasive and foul, we know it wasn't her sister or brother-in-law as they were in Palestine, or a son as he was serving in France. There were 4 sets of keys to the flat. Caroline's, which was found in the padlock, her son's Frederick, which was on the dressing table, 2 sets with the estate agent, one of which was used by Alfred Scott, and no others. Every current tenant or prior resident of the house was questioned, and with a recurring theme that nobody liked her. None of them disliked her enough to kill her, and they all had a solid alibi to prove it. With no scuff marks, cuts or abrasions, she had willingly ascended the stairs with her killer. Although what her intention was is unknown. As desperate to move out, the flat was empty, except for a few clothes, which wasn't hers, a radio, a penknife, and some slices of stale bread. But it was as she bent over to unlock a bedroom door that they struck, splintering the lock before the padlock was removed. Based on the marks, she was likely dragged to the bed and punched in the face as she screamed. But the blood found on the sheets and underneath the restraints showed that she'd lain unconscious as her killer had ransacked the room. First was the drawers, but what was in there we don't know. As having been in prison for 6 months, many of her few belongings were still at the hostel, or in the Gladstone bag she'd carried in. The brown attaché case was only lightly searched and given up just as quick. Next was the Gladstone bag, whose contents, business cards, letters, bank books, a diary, and scraps of paper with the details of those she'd met, scattered far and wide. So was the killer searching for something which identified them? Having come to, it's likely that she was bound and gagged before she struggled and screamed again, giving her assailant time to search the flat thoroughly. It's unlikely but unprovable that they took every note or coin found. And with her jewellery being too precious to sell, it was stripped from her. And although police found 2 sets of fingerprints inside the flat, they both belonged to Caroline and her son, and no one else. It was clear that a certain someone who'd broken in was looking for something specific. But what did they want from her? Her wealth? Unlikely, as her jewellery had more of a personal value than a monetary one. A hostel warden recalled that she got £10 in cash in her purse, about £300 today. And with only £20 in her bank account, her fortune of £2,833, roughly £202,000 today, was in national savings certificates and shares, which could only be accessed with a will, a next of kin, and a solicitor. But had they heard that she was wealthy and assumed it was in cash? If not, what did they want her for? Sex? Detectives thought not, as although she was previously a prostitute and a brothel keeper, it had all the hallmarks of a rape, as she'd been physically assaulted, knocked out cold, tied by her hands and feet to the bed, and with a coat and skirt rucked up around her hips. Someone wanted to see around her genitals. But with no semen, no penetration, and her underwear having not been removed, there was only one possible thing that they were looking for. Something she valued most. Caroline Jones had lived through hardship, poverty, homelessness, abandonment, and grief. Across the 60 years of life, she'd fled wars and persecution, and every time she'd moved from place to place, she always carried with her everything she held dear. Her jewellery on her fingers, her business affairs in an attaché case, and her daily essentials in a Gladstone bag. But her most precious thing in the whole wide world, she had hidden in a series of specially sewn pockets she had stitched inside her knickers and stockings. She had told many about the fortune she had. But being a filthy, foul and poorly dressed woman who lived off handouts and slept in homeless hostels, as an inveterate liar, it's unlikely that anyone believed her. But this was the one thing she cherished so much that at all times she kept it close to her skin. And this was her secret. But did she tell someone? Did they find out? And if so, who were they? It wasn't a friend or family member. It wasn't a punter or a prosy in the sex trade. It wasn't someone she'd stiffed on a business deal, or an opportunist thief who thought this frail old lady was an easy mark. In fact, it was someone There we go, folks. I've gone a bit weird at the moment. Gone a bit weird. It's when I started recording, my neighbour put his engine on, which I'm able to drown out. I'm able to edit out in a bit, but it was distracting me. I think as a dyslexic, I struggle a lot, and it's distractions are the thing that distract me. So I started recording, putting silicone earplugs into my ears, which is great. I was able to do that episode, record it quite quickly, which would be great to edit. But the problem is, I can't hear when people are walking past and going, "Oh, Margaret! Oh, how's your husband's piles? Oh," as we've got a lot of that today. So anyway, welcome to Extra Mile, the unscripted, unedited bit. It's bloody cold out. We're about. I realise I'm grumbling about this. We're about to have 0 degrees, and I don't have news anymore. I've switched off all the news because I'd rather not listen to the news anymore. And I know that I think my sister's in America, and I know that America is being swathed as of time of recording with a big snowstorm. So, and I think parts of the UK are as well. I just took your little hat off. There we go. So good luck to everyone with the cold weather. I'm going to have my fire on tonight, as always. It's nice to have the fire on. It's lovely. What else is going on? Oh, welcome to Extra Mile. Don't forget, we have a little chat now. I fill you in on some details that may not make it into the episode. We do some quiz questions, and then I press off on my laptop, and then the whole boat goes quiet, and it just feels really weird. Very lonely. Anyway, What's going on? I had my 50th birthday celebration the other day. So as of time of recording, I think this is 23rd of January, but I think you get this, I think it's the day before my birthday or something, because I'm born on the 18th of February. So when is 18th of February? Yeah. Oh no, so by the time you get this, I will be 50. Oh my God, put me to death. I think Eva's going to get rid of me. I don't think she wants an old guy anymore. I think she liked me when I was young and flabby, and now I'm just old and flabby. So yeah, I think she's going to throw me in the skip later on. But there we go. So all is good. We don't forget we have got the True Crime Fest coming up Saturday, 28th of March. Venue is going to be in Maida Vale in London. It's 50 quid a ticket. It's an all-day event. Loads of us, I think, 55 quid a ticket. Loads of us content creators coming along, providing new stuff that you won't get anywhere else. So I think I'm definitely going to do a tour, because it's Maida Vale, and I've got cases like this one which appear in Maida Vale. So I might do like a half an hour long tour, because we're not just going to do it in a venue, that we can do it in a pub next door, and we can do it outside. So, there's lots of different things we're going to do. I think me and Paul, a True Crime Enthusiast, we were talking last night, we have actually recorded 2 episodes of a secret project that we never released, called Weird Pam. And we really enjoyed it, but we're trying to simplify our lives. We both work too hard, and I don't want to have another project on top just to knacker myself out, just to have a handful of people go, yeah, I listened to it a bit. But we are thinking about doing a live version, because we really enjoyed doing it, but we're just not that focused on doing another bloody podcast. I just don't want to knacker myself out. Anyway, so come to True Crime Fest. It's the first one. There's only 200 tickets that can be sold. It's a small event. It's going to be intimate. It's in Maida Vale. Come along. It'll be a hoot. We'll have a giggle. And who knows, if it goes well, then maybe we can expand to a bigger venue, but all TBC. Anyway, thank you to new Patreon subscribers. Thank you to Katrina and Philip P. So thank you, Katrina, and thank you to Philip P. That's much appreciated. There's loads of goodies on the Patreon account. I think there's almost 2,000 posts that I've put in there. And the majority is stuff that won't be shared anywhere else. I used to share my location videos on social media. Now they're entirely for patrons. So have a look at that. So thank you to Katrina and thank you to Philip. Let's do the quiz questions. Let's see how many of them you got. Don't forget, 8 of them I haven't edited yet. So we don't know whether I will... like last week, I think I messed up 2. But there we go. It happens. Question number 1. What 2 jobs did Alfred Scott, the surveyor, do prior to being a surveyor? Oh, I feel the need for a Thai green curry tonight. I wonder if it's so cold. I think I might do Thai green curry instead of my usual. I might do that. Oh, yeah. I just got a smell in my nose, which is interesting. This morning, I smelt blood in the back of my throat, which is not a good way to wake up. Bad stomach, blood in the back of my throat. Not good. Now I'm getting the smell of Thai green curry. That is good. Question number 2. What was on the kitchen table in Caroline's flat? Question number 3. What kind of hat was in her son's wardrobe? Question number 4. Name one other item which was in his wardrobe. Question number 5. What wartime essential was on the windows? Question number 6. Name one of the 3 banks that she saved with. Question number 7. What kind of hat was she wearing? 2 hat questions. Wow. Question number 8. It's very exciting. Question number 8. What 2 things were still attached to her hand when her body was found? So let's dive into this. Oh, this was one that if you're a Patreon subscriber, I do a thing called Walk With Me, and every single week after I've finished editing the episode, I go on a walk and I go through all my thoughts about the episode, and it's something that I don't release anywhere else. It's just for Patreon subscribers. But in there, this has been one of those cases that I've been umming and ahhing over forever, because I pulled out the archive files, and the archive files are thick and deep, because obviously this is an unsolved case, and they were like, we don't know. They really don't have any number 1 suspects in this. They had they had around 16 suspects. And so I went through and I pulled out the archive files and I was trying to piece it all together. And it's such a, like, every single detail of everything that was in her bag is listed. So the name of every person, where she went, business cards they found, all listed. So I copied it all down. I built myself a Bible as always. And I was like, okay, let's go through this and make a really deep and investigative kind of episode where we take every single piece of evidence, we link it to each person, and we try and work out where that person was and whether they're a suspect and why they could have wanted to kill her. But it's one of the, what I've realised over time is sometimes you can have too much information, sometimes you can have too much evidence, and it, given the fact that true crime is really about entertainment, it really bogs the story down. So I spent weeks going, next week is the Caroline Jones story, and then I was like, and then it wouldn't be. And then finally one day I just said to myself, let's just go back to the evidence and let's just simplify everything and just see if we can tell the story of who killed her and why. And it was the one detail that kept luring me back, was the secret pockets inside of her knickers. And it's not... like, I've made this the big thing in the episode. I've made this the big finale, and I've kind of teased it throughout, and I've deliberately made you think right from the start. Like, I've put in a couple of things in there, like I keep mentioning the killer, and mentioned they, but twice I've deliberately written the word he, and I've put it mid-sentence, and I've hidden it away, so it's kind of, it embeds into your mind that it must be a man, and I keep embedding into your mind that it must be a sexual assault, but it's not a sexual assault, and it's not a man, it's a woman who's done this, and it's not for sexual reasons, it's for financial gain. So this wasn't a big thing by the police, but when I read about this, I was like, it just struck me as the thing. That's what this person is looking for. So I agree with most of what the police say, that it's clearly someone who knew her. She didn't have many friends. She didn't have any family left in the country by that point. She was coming... She'd invited a person in, but she didn't have many... She didn't have many, if any, friends. We don't know who they invited in. It could have been a client. And even before the door was open, just as she was undoing the lock, they pushed her or forced the door and maybe smacked her head against the door. The pathologist couldn't tell whether she'd been punched in the face or thrown to the floor or thrown against something. They said it was more likely to be a punch, but her face could have been slammed against the door, and that's how the door opened. We don't know. So there's a lot that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I just felt on reading it that this seemed to be the thing, that the killer had come in. They knew she got... It's a difficult thing, isn't it? Because her life is full of lies. Like, she's constantly going on about how she's destitute and she's going to all these homeless places. And if you look at the available money she's got, she is destitute. You know, she's got a meager pension. And I took out a bit out of the story where, as she comes out of prison, obviously when you're in prison, you kind of catered for bed and lodging and all that, and food and essentials when you're in prison. But as we saw with episode 332, The Kindness of Strangers, which was a recent case, when you're released from prison, it's like, okay, you're out of prison now. They don't really give you notice that you're probably going to be released. Sometimes it's on the day. It's like, okay, you're released now. And you go, well, where do I go? And they're like, not my problem. And it's like, well, my council house has been taken off me. I don't have any money. Benefits will have been stopped while I'm in prison. So, and this was the problem she had. So her pension book, she couldn't find it, and she was trying to track it down. And she also, I took this out of the episode as well. When she got off the train at Baker Street, the first thing she actually did was go into the banks and check her bank accounts. So she was already worried by that point about what money had been released. But there's not a lot of money in there. As you can see, I think in total there was about £20. So given the fact that £10 is around 300, that's around £600. So that's not enough to survive for a month. So yeah, she's not financially wealthy, but she is wealthy if you look at it in terms of the savings certificates and the shares, which obviously she could cash in if she wanted to, but I think she was trying to save it for her retirement, because she is 60, so she's not at retirement age yet. Although I can't remember what retirement age was wartime. Let's dive in some other stuff. So, neighbours all around her. So we've got, it's actually a family. So you've got James Galborough and Saskia, his wife, and then Henry and Jane and their daughter, Jane Jr. There may have been 2 other children in there as well. The details are a little bit sketchy on this. And then John van Giersdaal, the Dutch lodger. I probably entirely mangled his name, but that's about as near as I could get it. It's not important for the story. I'm sure it's important for him, but it's not important for the story. He'd left on the 11th of March 1940, so that was 9 days before her death. We don't like. Obviously, the police checked everyone. They checked everyone who'd ever lived there and everyone who kind of knew her. But it's one of those things where it's just there's not a lot. Let me try and dive into some of the details that we didn't put into the episode. Because there's a lot. Hang on, I'm just scrolling down. We'll come back to the murder scene in a bit. I've put pretty much everything we know about her in there. As mentioned, 5 criminal convictions, not a master criminal. Running a brothel, some petty theft, not really a lot, to be honest. It is fascinating that she had a big wad of cash, but she never used it to kind of survive. And living, like literally living in hostels. Like quite a few of the months that she was there, she was living in some really rough places. And it's not like she'd have a room to herself. She'd be living in like a room in a dormitory with like 20 or 30 homeless people. And whereas she's there with almost £3,000 for that era, which is close to £250,000. So, a lot of money. So it does always seem like she's always thinking about trying to get back to the days when she was a brothel keeper. And that is confirmed. She used to run brothels in and around Bloomsbury area. And she used to... she'd become friendly with taxi drivers, and she'd get taxi drivers to get businessmen and go, "Oh, you guys looking for a good night? Oh, well, you need to go to this brothel," and it's so she would pay them. So that's kind of how she ran her business. We don't know whether that was the taxi driver who was one of the last people who was who used to visit her regularly. We just don't know. I think there could have been quite a few. Even though she'd got that big whack of money in there, she did seem to spend a lot of this time going looking for work. Now, it may have been that her probation officer said that she had to. We don't have those details there. But she did seem to visit a load of different places, and then she would just renege on it. This seems to be a thing, that she'd go to one hostel and they'd set her up there, but she wouldn't turn up. But then she'd go to another hostel, and instead of going to the free one, she'd go to one that she has to pay for. And then she'd stay there for a couple of days, a week, with her stuff with her. But at the same time, she's looking for places to rent. But at the same time, as we can see, when she does finally get a place to rent, she doesn't stay there. She goes, "Oh, no, this is for storage." But she doesn't seem to have that much stuff. There's a lot going on in her life. And I think this is what kind of lured me in, was the whole idea of we just don't know what's going on in her life at the moment. As some people said, they said that she seemed mentally unwell, and maybe she was, or maybe she just didn't know what she was doing, or maybe her life was shifting so much at that point. Was she trying to flee from someone? Was she trying to hide herself? We just don't know. So she applied to Cozy Knitwear on Dean Street in Soho, but she didn't turn up. United Dairies as well, she was there. The Women's Voluntary Services for Civil Defence, which a lot of people did. She was applying for jobs as cooks or maids, as well as Highbury Nursery Training College, and a police officer who said he knew her said 18 months prior he'd met her in Sussex Gardens in Paddington. And as we know, Sussex Gardens has always been notorious for prostitution. We've covered a lot of cases there before. And he said that she had come up to him and complained of being unemployed and in dire straits, which she does a lot. And she does seem to be in dire straits. Her clothes aren't good. She's not eating properly. She's sleeping in hostels. But again, she's got the equivalent of £200,000 in her bank, which doesn't make any sense at all. Her diary didn't really amount to much as well. It was quite vague. It didn't seem to be, I met this person today, he was sinister, oh my God, I'm scared. It seemed to be if she was going for jobs, she'd write it in her diary. So there were one or two in there. A lot of people thought she was destitute and very lonely. Many gave her a meal because they thought she was hungry and destitute, which she was. One diary entry, 1939, so it was just before she went to prison. She asked a woman if she was seeking a maid, and Caroline said that she'd bought a number of girls from Germany and placed them as domestic servants in England, one of which was her son Frederick's wife. And therefore she was able to get them work permits. Now, there's a lot of things going on here. We don't know whether this is domestic service or whether she's trying to set up a brothel again. We just don't know. That does seem to be in there. That does seem to be a regular thing. What have we got? I'm just having to scroll down. Yeah, random people that she'd accost in the street. She'd have conversations with people and then just randomly assault them. And these weren't bad people who were trying to fight her or get money off her. These were just people like the one lady outside Bates & Co., the estate agents, and she was talking to her about trying to find a new place to stay, and then she just randomly thumped her. And you just go, why? But then again, some people are like that, though, aren't they? Some people are just odd. So I'm just going through my notes. The flat at Shireland Road, very weird. That took almost the whole time of her finding a room at Shireland Road and speaking to the landlady and then trying to negotiate it, going back and forth and being really annoying, and then paying a deposit on it and then saying, oh no, it's for storage, and then staying in a hostel. Why stay in a hostel when you've got a room and you can put your stuff in there and there's a bed in there already? And she'd already said to the lady, I will be willing to move in if you decorate it to my specifications. Really weird. Really weird. What else we got? She's visiting a lot of charity services. As mentioned, Salvation Army, Royal British Legion. She also went to Old County Hall, which was... The county hall is kind of the government building that's there, and she was trying to get a council flat for herself and her son, but her son had already enlisted and he was about to go overseas. He hadn't gone yet, but he was about to. And it's weird. She keeps insisting that the water board turn up and reconnect the water to her flat, even though it had been switched off, even though she hasn't paid the rent to it and she's technically not living there. There's all this stuff that just doesn't make sense. It's really baffling. Several business opportunities. Now, we don't know the name of the businessman, obviously, because this is unsolved. Obviously, there's a lot of people in this file who were potentially suspects, but obviously we can't name them as suspects because they predominantly, I think most of them are innocent. So yeah, they were looking at a hotel called Oonsborough Hotel on Regent's Park and another one at 10 Leighton Court Road in Streatham. I think we've dealt with something on Leighton Court Road before. They were sitting in a cafe in a bus station and they were trying to come up with an idea, and we don't know whether she was trying to get into the brothel business. It's not explicit because obviously this gentleman, whoever he is, deliberately didn't say, oh yeah, we were going to set up a brothel, because that's illegal, isn't it? But all the different locations she was visiting at, so as mentioned in the episode, Sussex Gardens, Star Street, Prince's Terrace, all places that we've covered before which were well known for prostitution. And it looked like she was trying to go back to the old days of buying or renting a whole building and then renting them all out as kind of brothels or all kind of walk-ups. And she was clearly looking at moving out as well, so she'd spoken to the furniture man just a couple of days before she died. She's looking into storage, stuff like that. And then we have 4 days where nothing is known about her at all, and then the final day, 2 sightings, one by 2 people who knew her and saw her, and then she just vanishes. It's likely that she may have died after that. Police said that in her flat, so I'm going to have to give away one of the quiz questions here, but when they went into her flat, they said it was incredibly dark except one room. And that's because the blackout blinds or blackout paper hadn't been put on the window. So they suspected that she... So this is March. So it wouldn't be dark until... I don't think it's dark until about 7 in March, something like that. So they suspected that she was... Actually, that doesn't make sense, does it? They suspected that she would probably be murdered in the daytime, they said. But, as we know, she was attacked as she was coming through the door. So she wouldn't have time to put up the blackout blinds. That's what I find fascinating about this, is there's so many details that even the police put down these details and then suddenly you're going through it and going, hang on, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, there was one detail where they said they suspected she'd taken her shoes and her coat off and put them by the side of the bed. But it's like she was attacked at the door. All the evidence shows there. So why would someone break in and then let her take her shoes and her coat off? It doesn't make, especially given the fact that there were other things still attached to her hand while she was lying in the bed as well. So it seemed like a rapid attack. What else we got? Hang on. Okay. Sorry. Padlock was found just behind the door. It was actually on the front of the door, but I think with the way it was forced and it bounced, it ended up behind the door. Room was ransacked, but there wasn't really a lot in there. As mentioned, 2 sets of fingerprints found in the rear room, Caroline and her son's, but obviously her son was serving overseas at the time. We got more details about that shortly. Jewellery never found. But that's the interesting thing, is that the housekeeper in Kensington, who she interviewed with the day before, remembered seeing all of her jewellery and noticing it. So I think that's kind of... I think that's a credible witness right there, especially with the whole idea that she said, oh, I'm destitute. And then she looked at her jewellery and thought, you know, that's enough to kind of sell and... sustain yourself. It wasn't expensive, but it was enough. So some suspects, obviously her son came to England 28th of September 1938 and was living with her at various addresses until they finally went to Bronsbury Villas. Oops, my boat is moving around a lot. I wonder if the we've got two. Ooh, I wonder if two of the open my curtains. We've got a set of locks just up from me which are being repaired, and I'm wondering if they're close to completion. That'd be great if they were. Yeah, so he lived at Bronsbury Villas. So she was in prison. I think it was around 14th of October. He remained at Bronsbury Villas until the 12th of February, and then he had to leave the district because he went to Richborough Camp near Sandwich in Kent, where he had to do his training. And at the time of the murder, he had to go overseas to France. So he was drafted to France on the 18th of March 1940. So that was just after she'd left prison, but about 12 days before she was murdered. And obviously, because this is military, they have the records for it. It's not like he went, oh, I'm going to go to France. And then I'm going to pop back and murder Mummy, and then I'm going to get back onto killing Germans. Bang, bang, bang. It's like it's documented. Like he couldn't disappear. So it's definitely not him. Even though his wife didn't particularly like Caroline, it wasn't her either. They actually had a flat by that point in Brighton, so it was verified it definitely wasn't her. The former lodger, John Van Giersdahl, he had a solid alibi, as did the other tenants in the house. Other people in her past who she had assaulted. There was one lady when she lived at King's House on Plender Street over in, I think it's King's Cross. This was 1937. There was obviously a charge against her for that, but she had an alibi for that as well. There's not really a lot of things in her past where you think, oh, that's enough there to want to kill someone. But then again, we've had stories before, haven't we, where people have killed people for something a lot less, and you just think, like even last week's episode, a woman brutally murdered and cut apart just because she said no to some sex, even though she regularly had sex with the same guy. It's just Some people are just like that, though, aren't they? Some people just have a trigger, and sometimes it can be as simple as the word no, or, you know, loaning someone £5 and not getting it back. I think that's it. I think that's all I really want to say about that. Yeah, I think I'm done on that. It did go to inquest, obviously. There was a jury of 9. It went before Dr. H.G. Broadbridge. Opened on the 16th of April 1940 and concluded on the 15th of June 1940. Verdict: murder by persons or persons unknown. Detective Inspector Ferrier said inquiries have not left any person who may have caused the death. No useful purpose would be served by a further adjournment of the inquest, and the case was closed. Caroline's body remains buried at Willesden New Cemetery. And as we can see, it remains unsolved to this day, and it probably will remain unsolved as well. So I've taken one angle of it, and I think, for me, I think it's the most logical angle. Some people may look at it and decide that there's other angles, but yeah, that's I've put across what I think the answer is. Although, even when you look at it, you still think to yourself, it's a bit crazy, isn't it? It's a bit of a crazy story that someone's like, I'm going to murder someone to get access to whatever is in their pants. And I would love to know what was in her secret pockets inside her knickers. Obviously, it was something so important. But it can't be the safety certificates because they're in the bank. The person ignored, whoever murdered them, ignored the bank books and the safety certificate books and the shares books. It wasn't the jewellery because they took the jewellery. So it's something more important than jewellery. It's something more important than money. It can't be cash because she had access to a greater number of money if she sold her shares. So we don't know what it is. We don't. What's more important than all of that? Maybe it's diamonds. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't make any sense what is in there. But clearly something was in her pants that's worth killing her for. I wish Eva would say the same about me, but she doesn't. She just laughs and points at it. Anyway, let's do the quiz questions. Don't forget, I deliberately messed up one of them, but let's see what else I messed up. Question number 1: what 2 jobs did Alfred Scott, the surveyor, do prior? He was a policeman and a coroner's officer. Question number 2: what was left on the kitchen table? It was a slice of stale bread. Question number 3: what kind of hat was in her son's wardrobe? It was a fedora. Question number 4: name one other item which was in the cupboard. It was either a walking stick or a tennis racket. Question number 5: what wartime essential was on the windows? This is the one I told you about, blackout paper. Question number 6: name one of the 3 banks she saved with. You got the Post Office, Lloyd's Bank, or Abbey Road Building Society, which was Abbey Road then, but in 1944, so 4 years later, that's when it became Abbey National, which is as we know it is today. Question number 7, what hat was she wearing? It was a flower pot hat. And question number 8, what 2 things were still attached to her hand when she was murdered? It was a gas mask case and a string shopping bag. So that's it, folks. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Back next week. Don't know what episode is next. Don't forget, become a Patreon subscriber. It's much appreciated. Leave a review. That's really essential. Or tell a friend. That's also vital as well. Anyway, thank you for listening to the show. It's much appreciated. Have a good one. Stay safe. Stay warm. Best wishes. Bye.
Want more true crime? This podcast and loads more are part of the Always True Crime Network. It's packed with box sets to binge and twisted tales you won't find anywhere else. Find your next podcast obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.